Hey everyone, and welcome to Business Boutique. I'm Christy Wright, and today we are continuing the conversation with my good friend and distraction expert, Curt Steinhorst, where we are going to talk about how you deal with the distractions that you face every single day. Check it out.
Okay, let's talk about something you said a minute ago, because I totally am tracking with you on the reality of technology in our lives. And it's certainly, I mean, a lot of the women listening, and me, you know, even myself, Curt, we use this for our business. So even though we say, oh, I've got to post this thing for business, and then 45 minutes later, we're still scrolling cat pictures, that's beside the point. But we really do use it and need it, and it can be a great thing, but we get sucked into this black hole like you're talking about. What about, you know, a minute ago you said, whatever we give our attention to is the priority. What if what we give our attention to, our phone or whatever the thing is not actually our priority? We have priorities that we say, no, Curt, this matters more. No, watching my kid's soccer game and knowing who actually wins at the end is more important than staring at my phone on the sidelines. What do we do when there's this gap between what we say is important and what we actually give our attention to? And that's where I have found the struggle in my own life, Curt, and the struggle in so many people I work with, because they're going, Facebook is not the most important thing in my life, yet I spend my time there. What do I do about that?
Yeah, great question. And I think this is where the rubber meets the road. It's one thing to have the feeling that we're not doing what we're supposed to do, but how do we actually make it an adjustment? Really, what we found over and over again is that for us to actually have an alignment of our intention and attention, we call that being Focuswise. Like
that's good. I like that. I like that visual, even of those two words.
Yeah, and where the activity meets the intended outcome. Like the critical piece is we have to get clarity on what actually matters. And as long as we are in constant input, people are sending us more information and we don't have the space to assess what actually matters, then we're going to find ourselves at places like a soccer game and say one thing, but something else is going to draw us away. And so it really does start by saying, I'm going to create the space and time. We call this building a vault, that before we do any other work activity or at whatever moment we can in the day, and I know I have kids, it's not always easy. It has to happen a variety of times, depending on the circumstances. I have to find a way to pull out, not be remotely available, literally cut myself off from the outside world, and to assess and select what is it that actually deserves my attention today, where am I going, what actually matters. This is like the first step to actually getting focused.
Well, I love even those two words where you said the intersection between your intention and your attention, because one of the things I've also found that I'd love to hear your thoughts on, Curt, is where does habit play into this? Because I have found that my phone has also, while it is a distraction and while the notifications come in, it's also a habit. So I'll give you an example, Curt. If my phone is near me, which let's be honest, it always is, if it is near me, within eyesight, even if it's in my peripheral vision, I pick it up over and over again out of habit and unlock it. It did not ring, no notifications went off, it did not vibrate or buzz, and I can tell you with 100% honesty, Curt, that what is more important to me are my children in front of my face, but out of habit, I pick it up. And so let's talk about the habitual nature of phones, because I've found in my life, like, it's like Pavlov's dog. Like, over and over again, I pick up and lock it, and I don't know why. Yet, if I place it in another room, if it's out of sight, it really is out of mind. And I look at my kids, and I don't pick it up. So, like, just a simple thing I've done, to your point, is I put it in a different room when I want to focus on my kids. So let's talk about the habitual nature of technology and the way that we use it.
Yeah, so there's several things about this. The first one is that every active decision you have to make to ignore one thing and go a different direction makes it a little bit harder to do the next time. And our brain is wired to try to preserve our energy. We want to save it for something that could be really important, which means we go back, we do the same patterns. Like the neurological term for this is cues, habits. Like the device, at some point along the way, we experienced an unexpected surprise that was exciting, and then our brain released a neurotransmitter called dopamine, and what that said was, you want to go back to this. Anytime you're tired, anytime you're bored, anytime you're frustrated, this is a place you should go back to. So there's like that natural wiring. Now, how do we change those habits? Because habits are hard, right? They're made to help us so we don't have to work so hard, and we can put our attention on things that matter. Number one, we have to recognize, you use this as an illustration, but space is one of the primary ways that our brain says this is what matters. Like, ultimately, we are in a place at a particular time with other people doing a particular activity. So how do we make sure that our space is helping us? This means, yes, putting a gap, creating a barrier between our device and where we are during the times that we really need to get certain things done, that we want to devote to certain things. But there's this hidden piece here that I think is often ignored, and that's the role that other people have in shaping what we put our attention on. Like, if we think about attention is the way that we select, like, if it is what matters, this is why nothing do we value more than others' attention. There's no better way to say we actually care about someone than to give them our attention. And then a device comes in, and we are biologically wired to feel rude, to feel like we're not being kind if someone sends us a message and we don't respond to it. So it makes sense that we would want to go back to these devices to actually tell people that want something that we care about them.
Yeah, I love how you just make us feel so normal about it, because we do feel so guilty. And I love how you're saying this, because there are things we can do where we put it in another room or whatever to help us manage that. But you also just make us feel normal of how our brain is wired and how we're wired as humans to gravitate towards that. It doesn't mean you're a terrible person. It means you're actually really normal, and there are these triggers that's making you gravitate toward that. All right, Curt, I want to talk about something. Let's talk about drugs, because you just said dopamine. And I've heard several different studies, okay? One, I've heard that when you go to social media or when you go to your phone and you unlock it and you have a notification, your brain releases the same feel-good hormones like you do if you were to have caffeine, take drugs, whatever the thing is. So immediately it's really fun, and it's like, ooh, let's do more of this. Let's unlock, because it's releasing these chemicals. However, similar to drugs, it doesn't always end well for you, and you become addicted. Where I read a recent study, this was in the last few months, that there is it's for teens, but the study was done for teens. I would imagine it's true for all ages. There is a direct correlation between screen time and unhappiness. And the opposite is also true, a direct correlation between lowered screen time and overall happiness. And we don't need to get into all the comparisons and all the stuff that we could go into with this, but let's just talk about what we're talking about here, not just the habitual nature, but the addictive traits of it, of you go back to it again and again and again. And the way that I explain it, Curt, and I don't hate social media, I don't hate phones, but I say, if you're not really careful, you're going to know everything about everyone else's life and completely miss your own. And so how do we break that cycle, break that habit, break even the addictive nature of it? Because it really is. I have an addictive personality. I chew 15 pieces of gum at a time. Like, you know what I mean? So like, this is like, teach me, Curt, and also our listeners on how we can be aware, but also guard against that.
Yeah, great question. So yeah, there's a lot of evidence that similar addictive patterns occur with the way that we relate to our devices. One of the reasons that I tend to not dive too heavily into it is because really any activity in the world that we enjoy or that doing it biologically actually promotes survival, our brain releases dopamine. That's what it does. And the places we go back to that release it more frequently, we're going to keep wanting to go back to. And so we do have a relationship with this device. When we have a message that comes in, the anticipation of having someone send us a message, that possibility releases that and can create a cycle where we're always going to go back to it at any point, right? That's what's happening. But the way that we have to break this cycle isn't through feeling like we have to throw our phones in the ocean, right, or we need to get rid of it. Like the way we break it is that we have something better. We have something better, like meaning that no one is worried about being on their phone when you are with the people that you love, having a fun conversation, sitting around the table, like an invigorating experience in an exciting place is the only way that we're going to ever break it. So I'll make this really practical. If we want to break the cycle, the number one thing we have to do is we have to actually have real conversations with the people that we care about to determine what matters and what are the ground rules that we can use to dictate our technology when we're together. Like, that's really what we have to start, because we end up avoiding the conversations that actually make us not want to be on our phones. And instead, we go to our phones to have conversations that we avoid in real life.
I love that. I saw something, ironically, on social media a few months ago that said, do something this weekend that makes you forget your phone. And I love that, because it really is pouring into showing up, being present for your real life, your real physical life, your real relationships. And again, it sounds like I hate phones. I don't hate phones, but in my own life, I just struggle with this so much. And I struggle with it, and I really am on guard against it. So I know people that aren't as on guard against this probably struggle with it even more. And so I love that whole idea. And you said something a minute ago that I think is a really good practical takeaway too of, I can't remember how you said it, but making it difficult on yourself to go down that path when you don't want to. So if I want to be with my kids, the best way to be with my kids is to leave my phone at home if we're going to go on a walk or something, or I'll put it on airplane mode, because I got to have my phone to take pictures, because I got to take pictures of everything they do all day. But something to where you have some type of guardrails against yourself. I know this is silly, Curt, but I have all of my social media accounts in a folder on the last page of my apps titled Time Wasters. So it breaks the unconscious clicking on Facebook and creates a conscious reminder. I'm gonna have to scroll through to the last page. I'm gonna have to see that it says Time Wasters, and I'm gonna have to consciously choose to put my time there, and just any little tips and tricks that I can help myself be present, because it really is a temptation, and it really is something I've noticed in my life interrupts me from missing, from actually seeing the moments with my kids or the things that really do matter more. So I love that example of for you showing up and having real conversations and real people.
Yeah, and the truth is, we're always going to avoid tough conversations if we can have the illusion of those relationships through digital means. But the challenge here is that they don't actually satisfy us. And so that means that for many of us, we've spent years cultivating digital relationships, and unfortunately the byproduct is leaving the other relationships that we care the most about and leading them into a pattern where these tough conversations don't ever take place. And one of the hard things about distraction is we feel it, but we don't realize that it's not something that happens in a vacuum. Like, it's not as if I'm alone in this process. We're hardwired to have the people around us shaping what we put our attention on. And so instead of just saying I'm going to get off my phone, like, how do I cultivate the conversations with the people I'm with? How do I set up to ask good questions that lead us down a path where now we have a people that we care about, and we're actually we're allies for each other. That all of our attention is agreed upon. Like, hey, we're going to do this from 7 to 9 p.m. every night. Yeah. And we're all on the same page. We're not going to feel guilty when a random emergency occurs, but maybe only one of us is going to have our phone out, because that way we can take great photos, but we're not all tempted to escape at any moment.
I love that. I'll tell you, Curt, my big takeaway, and I love hanging out with you and talking to you. You're such an expert on this topic, and I've learned so much even myself on this interview. But I'll tell you a big takeaway for me of all the different things we've talked about. We've talked about habits. We've talked about drugs. We've talked about dopamine. We've talked about routines and multitasking. We've talked about all these things. Just a big thing that keeps standing out to me that really pulls from all of these is just go make your life interesting. It's boredom that we run to social media. It's like anything in life, we just get into other habits. I talk to women about this a lot of times. We get in the habit of, we go home and we put our kids down, we do the dinner and bath and books and milk and bedtime, and then we crash on the couch and we watch a couple hours of TV while we've got our phone, checking Twitter updates. We get in this habit over and over and over again. And it's not that it's the best use of our time. It's not even the most exciting, interesting thing we could be doing. It's just, to your point, what we know. And we're wired for survival, so do easy, do predictable, do the thing we know. But you don't have to do that. You could go home today and say, everyone pack a peanut butter jelly for dinner. We're going to go on a scavenger hunt through the neighborhood. We're going to go have a nighttime sunset picnic. Like, that would be different. And it'd be kind of awesome. And you'd probably forget your phone. So I love this idea of make your life interesting, have real conversations and real relationships and break habits and break routines that make you want to run to your phone, because then not only will you not run to your phone, but you'll have a whole lot of fun in your real life. It's both.
That's right. That's right. And, you mentioned this, like, we'll go to a scavenger hunt. Here's an even easier option. If the habit is to sit on TV, and 9 out of 10 people when we're watching TV, we're using a second device. So we need distractions from our distractions, right?
Right. So many.
Yeah. So try this. We're just going to go on a walk casually around the neighborhood and talk.
That's it.
And
Love it.
So it's not, we're going to stare at each other on the couch when there's a TV that says we could watch something fun that we haven't seen that our friends tell us is great. It's like, hey, just part of the routine. We'll take a 20-minute walk, and that will allow us to have conversations to start cultivating it. And by the way, just on a practical note, like, being able to be in motion is one of the best ways that we can continue to stay focused on the things we intend to focus on. So, like, do little easy things rather than try to make unrealistically high expectations that we'll probably not hit when we're tired at the end of the day and nothing. There's no interest in doing something totally new.
Totally. And it could, like you said, it could be as simple as go sit on your front porch and wave at people driving by, or go walk around the block and look at all the scarecrows that people have out for their, Halloween decorations, or whatever the thing is that's going on. Go look at Christmas lights, or whatever the thing is. If a lot of people listening right now are entrepreneurs and they're creatives, they're like me, and Curt, they've got a lot of ideas. If you've got a lot of ideas, you should not lead a boring life. Like, put those ideas to work, not just in your business, but in your life. Curt, this is a silly example, but so I have a lot of ideas. I'm the, instigator of all things in my family, as you can imagine. And last week on Sunday, it was a random afternoon. My boys got up from naps at 4 o'clock, and I was like, Carter, do you want to make treat bags and go take them to all of our friends in the caboose? Now, the caboose is the bike trailer. We just call it the caboose. And he's like, yeah. I just got a piece of printer paper. We wrote our friends' names on it. He put some stickers on it. It took 2 seconds. And then we put some pumpkin treats that we had in a little Ziploc, nothing fancy, put him and his bike helmet in the back of the caboose, and I biked all around our neighborhood to 4 different friends' house delivering little secret packages. It was honest to goodness, one of the most fun things I have ever done with my son. It was active, it was different, it was a fun surprise for them. It gave him a little project, like, okay, the next house is. He was like, who's the next house? I was like, Jessie. He was like, what does her name start with? I was like, a J. So he's going through the cards to find the J. He's 3 years old. It doesn't have to be that elaborate, to your point, but anywhere on the spectrum, from sitting on the front porch to doing a round-the-world bike tour of delivering treats, just do something interesting, engaging, active, fun, surprising, thoughtful, funny, weird. It doesn't matter. Just do something besides be on your phone, and you will probably forget that there's some cat memes on Facebook that are pulling for your attention.
Yeah. That's awesome. And by the way, I think I might use that for my 4-year-old.
Please do.
So
Please do.
officially, I think great advice. And I think one thing that can help us do that is if we just take a step back, and this is something I always have to both remind myself, and I want to encourage others. Like, what's happening there? It isn't better. There's not. You're not missing anything.
That's good.
And get off social media for 1 day and come back, and you'll realize, like, there's so many messages no one remembers anyways. And really what all of it is doing is it gives us this illusion that we need to be in infinite places, we need to respond to infinite requests, we need to answer infinite questions, we need to know infinite things. Like, we're not infinite. And by attempting to and dividing ourselves so broadly and trying to consume so quickly, what we end up doing is exhausting ourselves and not getting to actually experience the enjoyment of where we are and when we are and who we're with.
That's really good. Curt, this is so helpful. I know one of my favorite things about even just this conversation is how you make us feel so normal, but also challenge us to do better. Challenge us with tips and tricks of things you can do once you understand why you feel that way and why you're tempted in those areas. Now that you know, knowledge is power. Now that you can do something different, and you can put into practice these simple things we're talking about to help you feel less distracted and really get to enjoy the people around you. But also, when you want to use Facebook for your business, or you want to use it even just to connect with people for a few minutes, fine. Just do it on purpose, not let it feel like it's consuming your whole day and your whole life. Curt, I know people are probably wishing we talked longer and want to know more from you. Where can they find your book? Can I have your attention? And where can they learn more about everything you're up to? Social media, speaking of, your website, just where they can connect with you and learn more?
Yeah, well, the book's available on Amazon. That's probably the easiest place these days. So it's just, can I have your attention? My website is Focuswise.com. That's our team. We do organizational consulting and speaking and then research on this as well. So Focuswise.com. And, you know, social media has some amazing advantages. So LinkedIn, probably the best place. Connect with me. That's easy. I'm also intermittently available on Instagram and Twitter as well.
I like the intermittently. I love it. Well, Curt, you're such a great friend and certainly an expert in this space, and encourage me all the time. So thank you. And now I know our listeners are encouraged as well. Thanks for spending some time with us.
Truly my pleasure, and anytime for you.
Thanks so much for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. And if you need help protecting your time and saying no, well, I've got a resource for you. It's my free download, 25 Ways to Protect Your Time. You can get your copy by clicking the link below.